Sure. So, I mean, I think I've essentially always been a Stoic, so I was a Stoic before Stoicism was cool, as they say. I'm super happy that it's becoming really popular. But my dad taught me ethics and a lot of, morality through philosophy. He was a Jesuit priest, obviously. He left, or, I wouldn't be here, and became a scientist. But he spent a lot of time, and not just Stoicism, from Plato's Republic to mostly all based on the Greek philosophy, which is the basis of all Western philosophy. And I just really got attached to Stoicism, and I think he was too, Stoic. And so I grew up, you know, off and on. I mean, there's, I wasn't like, 100% all the time, but it kept coming back in my life as it does to many people. And the military, which is very prone to Stoicism, I think, partly because it really does focus on the virtue ethics, and they're very compatible with the life of a soldier or sailor, airman, or Marine. But and it kept coming back in that, from meditations like you already required reading. Um, I don't know if Enchiridion and discourses are required reading, but I think it is. Probably is. It should be. If not, probably should talk to the commandant and make sure I get that on the list if he listens to me. And then I saw it throughout my time in the military and the CIA, which there's a special activities component, which is essentially the military, just under different authorities. Another conversation. But I saw it there. I saw guys they were already interested in. They heard that I was involved in it for a long period of time, so they asked me questions. And then my last job after I retired from the agency was back at the Pentagon, and I had the privilege for working for Secretary Mattis, who was a well-known Stoic. Actually carried a copy of Meditation, so it was kind of came full circle then. And then when I got out of government entirely, um, people kind of reached out to me about writing stuff, and I really did focus on how not just how Stoicism could apply to the military, but how it could apply to the resilience needed for military service. So, although I am a big proponent of that, let's not make it all about Stoicism, all about the military, because we kind of have that audience, if you will, and but that's where I focus on. So, but I really do think, and I'm in a cabal with a lot of different people that are involved in modern Stoicism, from Donald Robertson to Ryan Holiday to Nancy Sherman to many others. We're trying to reach out, get more women involved, get non-traditional Stoics. It's been military athletes, huge with athletes, always has been, and then business people. Believe it or not, they tend to. Those are the ones that I see mostly. It's scientists I see mostly, but we're trying to get non-traditional. But that's how I, you know, got involved from an early age, and I grew up in a kind of a rural area in the South, so they know what the hell I was talking about. I'm sure they do now, but
Yeah.
back then, you're either Southern Baptist or Southern Methodist, and I was like a Stoic, right?
Right.
I don't think that's a denomination. I'm like, it's not, but let's go with that. But anyway,
But
that's
it's,
good now.
it's compatible. It is compatible with all of those denominations, right? Which I think is
Yeah,
one of the things that makes it timeless, right? And
yeah,
so you mentioned that Stoicism is getting more popular. You mentioned Ryan Holiday and some others, and
yeah.
I actually just finished Ryan's latest in the Virtue series, Right Thing, Right Now, on my flight yesterday home from a family wedding. And he talked about in the afterword of the book about what he was like, younger in life at 18, 19 years old, as he was scaling American Apparel and discovered Stoicism. And he talked about it in the same vein that you were just describing with, high performing CEOs and high performing athletes and high performers in the military, right? Looking at it as tools for success, right? Tools for ways to get better and at whatever it is that you do. And while it absolutely does offer that, he mentioned that what's great about Stoicism is that it works on you over time, right? And so there's this idea that there are a lot of misconceptions out there about Stoicism, right? If you ask, just anybody passing on the street, if they're reading like a fiction book and the author describes somebody as Stoic, what do you think, right? And that person will say, quiet, unemotional, strong frame, and just kind of quiet and moving their way through the world and not necessarily interacting with it or their emotions so much. When in reality, Stoicism is a tool, and was um, developed as a tool, as a set of philosophical tools to get better, but it was to get better at everything, including your inner life, including how you interact with your own emotions, not to just dismiss your emotions, but to understand your emotions, how they make you feel, what they make you think, observe those thoughts, observe those feelings, break them down, and figure out kind of how to move forward. So what are some of those misconceptions about Stoicism that you've encountered in this work that you've been doing post government service? And you mentioned a couple of them already, that you're working with folks on trying to bring more people into the fold. But what are some of those misconceptions that you noticed, and how are you using your platform within the community to help shine a light on them?
Yeah, so the first one Carey already brought up is the idea of the Stoics unemotional, right? That and because we use that term in that manner, when the Stoics have always, understood that, man, collectively, right, man and woman, is an emotional being. I mean, you don't have to be an anthropologist or a psychologist to realize that. So the Stoics wanted to control it in a way that was most beneficial to the person and society, right? And I think that's one of the issues that I see, that people that are challenged by Stoicism are challenged by that concept, um, because it really is about controlling your anger, and anger is a really big problem in society today. I mean, it's the root of violence, to be extreme. It's also the root of rudeness, and it's the root of families falling apart, and it's a lot of the bad things that happen in a person's life, both to themselves and to their relationships. So it's not about not having them, but it's about controlling them to the point that you don't lead with your temper, and I think that's what a lot of the men specifically that I know um, struggle with. But it's also the reason to be a stoic, right? Because I also view hypocrisy as one of the worst, sins, if you will. Like, I would rather, if a person is a world class a hole, and they said they were. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but at least they're not BSing, you know?
Right.
Like, I'm an a hole and I know I'm an a hole, and, but the person who runs around holier than thou and, lecturing other people on what they should be, and is an a hole, that's the worst. So if you, it's like a religion too. Like, if you really are committed to trying to be, a stoic, and some people don't like to say they're Stoics. It has to do with it's almost arrogant because, but that really, I don't want to get sidetracked. But a sage is somebody who's kind of mastered Stoicism, and for real Stoics, like, nobody can ever be a sage. It's always trying to attain it, right? So if you said I'm a stage, you'd be like, oh, geez, this guy really doesn't understand Stoicism. It's like always trying to attain that stage of eudaimonia. It's kind of like nirvana for Stoics. But you can never really attain it. And if you could, it wouldn't be up to you to claim you did. It'd be somebody else, saying Epictetus was, a sage or something. But he would never say that. But the point being is, it's if you're trying to attain that, even if you're going in the right direction. Like, any progress is progress. So many different Stoics have a quote that says that. Like, if you're a 4 on the good scale trying to get to a 5, at least you're getting to a 5. You know what I mean?
Right.
And if you're
Yeah.
not being dishonest with yourself, then you're going to start moving in the right direction. So I think, the idea that Stoics are unemotional, I think they're just as emotional as anybody else, but they've realized that emotion and trying to control good actions, like compassion and generosity and honesty, is what you should try to do. Get away from greed and and jealousy, and it's they all exist in every person. But if you spend a lot of time trying to really focus on what makes people good in yourself, then you're going to be better off. And whether it's Stoicism or any philosophy that really focuses on ethics.